that, and I'll go to the next slide.
Sure. Okay. Um, Anticipatory anxiety. Does anybody know what that is?
Uh, oh, I think it's like, wait, I mean, it says it on the slide, but like, you kind of like psych yourself out before you even do it, because you're like a fear of failure or something like that. Like,
Right. So it's
yeah,
really thinking about it's exactly what you said, like thinking, oh, I'm not going to be good enough. And you have all this anxiety before you even start the presentation, thinking about um, as Kobe said, fear of messing up, like I'm not going to do a good job. I'm going to have these anxiety symptoms. And often what happens is that the anticipatory anxiety that you, or in other words, the anxiety that you have prior to the presentation is worse than the actual anxiety you feel during the presentation. What a lot of people find is they'll worry so much about it. And this is not just about presentations. I mean, we do this in many aspects of our lives. There's a great saying, something like my life is full of many tragedies, most of which have never happened yet, because we worry so much about things that can go wrong. And when it comes to a presentation, you worry about what can go wrong in the presentation. But again, keep in mind that many times, more often than not, once you start talking, if it's something that you know a lot about, that you feel comfortable with, um, the anxiety goes away because you just start talking about something that you are familiar with and that you're excited to share. Okay, next slide. Okay, so with this one, what I had wanted to do if we hadn't started so late, I really hate the idea that I'm just sitting and talking at you guys this whole time. I really like to do very interactive workshops. And I had wanted, and I guess, Jessica, I'll leave this up to you. Are we able to break up into smaller groups and have people, and do we have the time? I would say just like about 3 or 4 minutes, but have people go into little groups and just talk about what are some of the fears and thoughts that go through your mind that makes you concerned about speaking in front of a group.
Yeah, for sure. So we definitely have time. So what I'll do is, if you want, I can make three breakout rooms since we have like roughly, um, and that will, I can assign folks to the breakout room, and we'll make sure that, Kobe and Shitangshu, if you're okay, just being in, one of the breakout rooms, in case needed. So I will, put folks in there, and yeah, we can, just let me
Awesome.
know then when to bring folks back, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, and just to be clear, the difference of what I'm asking you now, before I said what are some of the symptoms, this is what are some of the fears that you have. I mean, obviously it would be that some of those symptoms could happen, but I'm talking more about what are some of the fears and things that go through your mind that make you afraid of speaking in front of a group. Okay, so it's not symptoms, it's the thoughts. So an example would be, just to give you an example, like I'm afraid I won't remember what I have to say. So that's a very common fear that people have. Okay, so just to give you an example.
Awesome. So, folks, I'm going to open the breakout rooms. At any point, if you have any questions, let us know, and we will put a message when it is time for everyone to kind of come back. But keeping in mind those few questions and thoughts that Wendy had mentioned.
Yeah, I'm thinking just about 3 minutes, and then maybe come up with, as many as you can in about 3 minutes, and then I figure out one person in the group who's going to just share what you came up with.
Awesome. So I will open the breakout rooms, and y'all should be assigned to a room. You may have to click the prompt on your screen to move you to that room. If it still gives you any difficulties, let us know as we can change things in that. So I'll open the rooms. and y'all should get a prompt letting you know to join either room 1, room 2, or room 3.
Okay, so one of the things is that what gets people feeling that maybe they have anxiety about it is that they don't really have a lot of experience before doing these presentations. But again, it's about the solution to that is remind yourself that like especially in what you guys are doing, presenting, your projects or your, whatever you're working on, probably everybody else is in a very similar situation to you. And even if they have more experience, there's always somebody who has more experience than we do. So again, to get back to Sarah's point, she's been asked to talk to these doctors or to these medical people for a reason. But there's going to be a lot of people who maybe know more than she does, but then there's a lot of people who know more than the people who know more than she does. Like there's always someone we can compare ourselves to. Just know that everybody feels the same way. But it's also really important to look for opportunities to get experience. So how can you get more experience, do you think, presenting so that you feel comfortable? Anybody have any ideas?
I guess I can start with one.
Okay.
I know Alfred and I, we actually talked about different things we've done, perhaps that support us. So for me, debate was my like a life changer, where I was like a super introverted person who wasn't comfortable kind of speaking, and then kind of being able to be in a debate club where I was also like forced to practice in these small groups with friends. Like and like not and then later on eventually building confidence up to go to debate competitions, and later on like there's a big stages, right? But like for me, debate club and sometimes speaking club, Toastmasters, like these kinds of things can really help a lot, because there's a lot of people struggling with these things, and oftentimes they're wanting to support each other. So yeah, for me that
Yeah.
was a life changer in some ways.
Okay, so those are great ones. I don't know if everybody knows or what Toastmasters is, but it's a group that you can join, and the whole purpose of that is you go and you give these little off the cuff presentations. The whole thing is practice. You meet every week. I highly, highly recommend it. The other thing, and it may sound like for someone who's shy, but I mean, you were saying you were very introverted and very shy, and you joined a debate club. Well, that's fantastic, and must have been very challenging, but obviously it gave you the results you want. Another one is, and I know people who've done this, I've met a bunch of people recently, they join improv groups, which sounds so frightening to me if you're afraid to do presentations, to have to come up with improv, but they love it. And it's really, it's something that's helped a lot of people, and it is a very supportive place and a supportive way of doing it. So those are some things. Other things are just like little community events. In my neighborhood, there's a community fair every year. And you could, maybe you've got something like that, like in the park. But it's a big park, so there's a lot going on. Take a bit of a leadership role where you've got to be telling a bunch of people what's going on in your little project that you're working on, or that you've been assigned, whatever you're for the fair. So there's lots of different ways, but you really do need to look for those opportunities to get experience. Okay, next. Okay, so a lot of people have a big fear about being judged. So on our appearance, are we dressed properly for the presentation? I would say that the thing to remember is dress for success. And what that means is it doesn't mean that you're going to be wearing a suit because that might be inappropriate. I mean, try and find out what's appropriate if you can beforehand, but just make sure that you are wearing something that is looks good and that you feel comfortable in. And I think that's probably just as important. Because if you're wearing something and you can't breathe because it's too tight or it's just not something you're comfortable with, you want to be comfortable. So you want to work on that. A lot of people fear their voice. Now, some people have brought up, your voice in terms of having an accent or not being able to communicate as well as you want. But then there's things like, are you talking too fast? Are you talking too slow? Are you using too many filler words, too soft, too loud? What I would say about that is, remember, you are hearing a lot of things that other people are not hearing. You want to work on trying to not speak too fast or too slow. I'm not saying that you just do whatever you want without thinking about it, and those are the things you do when you practice. But if you stumble over a word, if you don't say it correctly because of your grammar, people are going to be so much more accepting of that in you than you will be of yourself. So just keep that in mind. Mannerisms, and that gets back to what was said at the beginning about the pacing. How are you holding your hands? How are you standing? What I would say is, watch people who, maybe it's a TED talk, maybe it's some other sort of presentation that you're watching. See how somebody else is standing or moving or not moving that you admire, and just practice it. It's incredible what you can do if you are aware and you practice. And then a lot of people have a fear of being judged on their performance. Am I good enough? Will I get the point across? Will people think I'm smart enough? So the solution there is just remind yourself why you're there. You wouldn't be there if you weren't competent and done things right in the past. And often just having a genuine passion for whatever you're talking about is half the battle. And people sense that and get excited. Okay, next. Perfectionism. We all want to do it perfectly, the pressure to deliver a flawless presentation. Remember, no one is perfect, even if they seem to be perfect. You don't know what they know that they've missed, that they wanted to say. And as we've talked about a lot, no one is going to be more critical of yourself than you will. Okay, next. So you might have some negative previous experiences that you think about. And that literally could be that grade 8 class, when you were asked to do your first presentation that you did for an English class or something, because of course that's part of what people have to do. With that, just recognize that, first of all, you've come a long way since then. You've learned and grown from that experience. And I would say that every negative experience that you have in life, whether it's a job interview, whether it's what you're doing now, if you don't land up, getting the funding that you want, it's all experience for the next time. So learn and grow from your experience. If you do have a negative one at some point, just remember, everybody has a bad day. That was the past. It's not your future. And then focus on how much you've practiced for this. Some of the anxiety reducing techniques that I'm going to talk about, we've talked about a bunch of them now that will help you be prepared, but some actual things that you can do. And just remember, any negative thoughts that come into your mind that we talked about again, when you went into your groups, what can happen? Change it to positive self-talk. Okay, go to the next slide, and we're going to get to that. We're going to talk about it in a little bit more detail. We've already talked about audience responsiveness, so we can go to the next one. Okay, so the self-talk. So those negative thoughts, like I'm going to mess up, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, all those things can lead to anxiety. So you really need to think about positive ways, positive thoughts that you can have to counteract the negative ones. So when you think of something like, oh, I might not be smart enough, think about, wait a minute, why am I here? I'm here because I got through whatever you needed to do to get through to where you are now. And and it's really a question of challenging a lot of those thoughts that you have that lead you to go down this negative path. And I'm not sure if any of you have heard about the word catastrophizing, but sometimes it's just a negative thought. But sometimes that negative thought can turn into something way more than that. So you might be even thinking, oh my gosh, if I mess up with this one, this is it for my life. You go into a whole story that is false, quite frankly, that leads you down this road. So it's really important to stop yourself when you have these negative these negative self-talk things that you're talking about. So instead of saying, like, if you think I'm going to do a terrible job, look at what evidence do you have for that? Did you ever do a terrible job? Maybe you haven't done as good of a job as you would have wanted to, but that was in the past. Now you're in the present and you're well prepared. You're as capable as anybody else. And if you did do a really bad job, it's one day. Nobody's going to remember that afterwards. I mean, again, maybe in the program you're in, maybe you don't get the funding. Okay, there's always a next time. And it's through those experiences that you continue to grow and you get to where you want to be. So if we had more time, we would actually go through some of the self-talk that might impact you. But unfortunately, we're already past our time. But I just want to give you some food for thought now, and to think about how much this might impact you and your anxiety. Okay, next one. Okay, so in sum, overcoming presentation anxiety, be organized and prepared. You know, the being organized are things like exactly what happened with this, is you might have some technical difficulties that you can't anticipate. So that's why we did meet before, but it landed up being worse than we thought. So unfortunately, this happens. And you just need to kind of move on from it. I would say if you're going to go somewhere, check out the technology first. If you can go, if it's in a venue and you can go to the venue, go and even do your presentation there if you can in advance. Because the more, even things like getting to the venue, you don't want to get there and find that you got lost, and then you get there and you get there later, you get there flustered. You want to always be prepared. Look confident. It's incredible how if we can change the way we feel simply by, instead of going down the path of I'm going to screw this up, it's not going to work well, looking in the mirror and saying to yourself, I got this. I've been practicing it. I know it. Smile. You smile. If you're feeling down, if you're feeling anxious, it literally changes the way you think. And the practice is so important. The more you practice, the more you will be able to, some of the things that you do now, like I would say, start practicing, do it in front of a small group of friends, get their feedback, then practice in front of people you don't know. practice in front of the mirror. Watch yourself. Are there things that you're doing with your hands or walking or pacing or whatever that you don't want to do? You could videotape it. So there's lots of different ways that you can see what you're doing and come to your presentation totally prepared for what you're going to be doing. And you will feel so much better. Okay, next one. Okay, so the final thing I want to talk about is the actual day of the presentation. Relaxation is so important. So to approach it in a relaxed manner, what you want to do is, we've got here, eat, drink, exercise, and sleep for success. So in terms of eating, don't eat like have a big meal an hour before, because for most people, when they have a big meal, it makes them a little sluggish. You don't want to go hungry. You want to have enough food that you have your energy, but save the big meal until afterwards. Eat healthily. Don't have a bunch of chips or things that are going to, again, many people are very impacted by what they eat. Make sure that the day of your presentation, you eat healthily. Don't have caffeine before you do. And if you do, in moderate amounts, like if you feel like, well, I need a little bit just to give me a little bit of a energy boost, fine, but don't go have 4 cups of coffee, because that'll make you even more jittery. And don't drink a ton of water, because you don't want to have to go to the bathroom before or during, and go before, because that of course is something to be aware of. And bring water with you, so that if you need to drink during it, you've got a glass of water there. Exercise is the biggest antidote for anxiety. So if you're doing a presentation in the morning, get up a little earlier, go for a brisk walk. If you're doing it in the afternoon and you enjoy lifting weights, or do some exercise in the morning that's going to help you feel your best, and get rid of excess jittery nerves. And try to get as much sleep as you can the night before. It's very possible that you're not going to be able to sleep that well especially if you have anticipatory anxiety, but do everything you can to create an atmosphere where sleep will come. So don't be scrolling on Instagram. Don't be playing games on your phone or on your computer. Those are things in general that are very counterproductive to falling asleep. You want to do everything you can that is relaxing to you, whatever that is, and that helps you fall asleep. And security blanket, what I mean by that is, sometimes people feel, oh my gosh, what happens if I forget everything? If I have a panic attack while I'm doing the presentation? If you have your presentation there written out, I would say 99% you will not have to use it, but especially just knowing it's there. If for whatever reason something awful happens and you blank out, you just read it, and then you'll calm down and you'll be able to get back into talking about what you are there to talk about, which is your passion. In terms of relaxation techniques, obviously you wouldn't do this during the presentation, but if you're feeling anxious before, a good breathing, we don't recognize how much when we're anxious, we literally stop breathing, or we may take very shallow breaths, and the more shallow the breath, the less oxygen gets to your brain, and it actually creates more anxiety. So during the presentation, if you find yourself all of a sudden, your hands are clammy, your heart starts to beat a bit more, just take a second, take a couple of deep breaths. Nobody's going to notice if you pause. They're going to think that that's part of the presentation. I mean, really and truly, you're going to notice it, other people are not. And before, if you're having anxiety, or anytime you're having anxiety, a really good way of breathing is to take to count to 4, take a deep breath, counting to 4, hold your breath for like 3 or 4 seconds, and then let it out in 7 seconds. And do that a couple of times. It'll ground you, it'll calm you down, and you will feel much, much better. And that's kind of it. So I'm happy to answer any questions anybody will have, anyone has, or.
I just want to say thank you. I know I've been muted for most of the presentation because I've actually been like writing notes on my end.
Sorry.
Sorry, Shang-Chi. No, you're good. I was just muted because I was writing down notes to make sure like I can apply this information to like our future workshops and things as well. But yeah, if anyone else has any questions, I'll leave it to folks.
Well, okay. I can ask you a question
Sure.
for yeah, Wendy. So, did you like how did you get into like this like expertise? Like, did you have your own personal experiences with like having a lot of anxiety when presenting or stuff like that? Like,
Yeah, as I was saying, well, I was saying when I was a teenager up until, my goodness, probably in my 20s, I had a lot of anxiety around a lot of things, including presentations. And as I was saying, just even to the point where I was one of those people, if you went around the room and you had to say 2 sentences, I'd be thinking, oh my God, am I going to forget it? What I did was I became a therapist because I knew about anxiety. Um, and I worked as a therapist for about 12 years and then went into more of a corporate setting because I had a human resources company for many years. But that's when I worked with people individually at the beginning, when I was a therapist. But when I had my HR company, I did a lot of um, group presentations and worked with people, like have a group of under the wellness department, and we would do dealing with anxiety around presentation skills. So and as I was also saying at the beginning, I mean, the difference between, if I think back to my teens or my early 20s and now, where I present in front of 500 people, and it's just easy for me now. And I love it. Like I love people, so and I think I have a lot of expertise to share. And when you feel confident about your expertise, it just makes it very rewarding.
yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you for the presentation as well.
Well, my
It was
pleasure.
great. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Seems like that's it, Jess, you think?
Yep. I'm gonna prompt. I know Shang-Shu had a couple words they want to share, so I'm just going to invite our executive director Shang-Shu on. And then if folks have any questions, feel free to like drop them in the chat or to send us. And if y'all have any questions like afterwards, also like send them our way. And yeah, I'm gonna let Shang-Shu share a few words because I know he wanted to share some. So
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Wendy. I so appreciate this, and in particular, it's going to be so relevant to so many of our teams who are going to be presenting so many grand finals. So many of our teams have had to already present a video or record a video where they're likely dealing with this, and so this is so very relevant. And of course, beyond YC, something that we have to do in our lives at some capacity. So this is for me incredibly learning, I guess, or something I learned a lot from, and lots of lessons I'm going to take forward. I know today it wasn't the smoothest at the beginning, and perhaps there itself into things that can go wrong in a presentation and all that. But I think you shared this this that reflection that, you know what, even when things go wrong, you know, we can still recover and have an incredible, impactful presentation. I know for so many of the participants, even the ones who left, many people have been sending us notes saying how much, you know, they really appreciated it. So just thank you, Wendy. It means a ton that you've given us this time, and I'm really excited to see how our participants may apply these lessons in their presentation. So thank you so much, Wendy.
My pleasure. It was great. Good. Okay.
All right. Well, I guess thank you, everyone, then, and have a great, wonderful evening. Goodbye.